What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to I Do It Myself. Good morning. How y'all feeling? It's Monday. You know what I'm saying? Let's get to it. If you like what it is that we do over here, though, hit that sub button, hit them likes and run up that hype. Today, we talking about pod wars, man. The Native Land podcast versus the Joe Budden pod. We seen what happened last week with Mark Lamont Hill and Queen's Flip. And I hate the way the conversation is being passed around and reduced to Mark is just being done so dirty and people don't respect him and he's just on a podcast where they don't see the value in him and he's good in so many other places. And I think that for myself, right, and I'm only speaking for me, Mark Lamont Hill has been putting in work for years and I've been watching him from afar. Seen him in person a couple of times. We never spoke, but he has been putting in work. And I do think that he represents, a certain type of man. He represents the man that is all about intellect, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like we need more brothers that represent that side that represents intellect, but don't get it twisted. I said it before, I said it again. Nigga from Philly. I think he from North Philly at that. That's a real serious place to come from, you feel me? So when we talk about how things get handled and how things are done, keep in mind, man, like, you never forget your roots. I don't care how much bread you get, how much success you get, what happens. Yes, you're going to conduct yourself on a certain level, but you never forget your roots. And one thing I will say about the Joe Budden podcast is that shit is definitely a revolving door. It's people who are always coming in and being swapped out. People that bring in, swapped out, bring in, swapped out. But the layer that Mark Lamont Hill has added to the pod, I think is extremely dope. Reason being is because, Math Hoffa had, his podcast, where he's in a barbershop. And I think that this is the barbershop conversation for real because you got so many different dynamics. You know what I'm saying? You got Jay Wan, who, he's Jada Kid's son, but negating that, he represents a very, very young side that has their own way of thinking in today's world. You got Queen's Flip, who Queen's Flip has always been, don't get it twisted. He's always been a wild card. He's always done shit that you don't know what to expect. He's had fights on his podcast. He's trolled people on his podcast. He's told great stories. And I think he's did a lot of great things in the podcast space. You know what I mean? You got Ish and you got Ice. Ice, my man. You know what I mean? I know Ice for I know Ice about 15 years now. Ice got a lot of different layers to him as well, especially when it comes to music. I don't know if people understand how deep his music shit run. You feel me? You got Ish. I don't know much about Ish personally, but Ish does add a layer to podcasting that you be like, I want to know what he think. You might not fuck with Ish, but you do want to know what's on his mind and you do want to know what he's thinking. Now, I personally like Melissa Ford on there because I remember when Melissa Ford used to be on King Magazine, I used to read everything she used to say. I remember she had a column one time speaking about like things that a man should do to keep a woman's interest. And as like me being maybe 19 years old, I was tuned in. And I think that even Melissa, because of her experience in the music industry from being a video vixen, but also being a woman that has intellect side as well, she has that duality. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know if she's going to ever be back on the pod, but then you bring in Mona, you bring in Mona. Philly at his fucking core. Straight Philly chick, you know what I'm saying? And what I love about Mona's dynamic is she's very honest. You got Joe, we know what Joe brings, and then you got Parks. Parks, I love what Parks does because Parks is always looking from an objective point of view, but he also not a fucking pushover. At least I feel like he's not. Now, the Native Land podcast, you know what I'm saying? You have Tiffany, who's on there. I don't know everybody's name. I've just been getting put onto this podcast. I know Angela Rye. Angela Rye has been doing a lot of work on the political side and the commentary side for years. She does a lot of things that matter. You know what I mean? A whole lot of things that matter. But now there's become a clash. And this clash that's happening is due to the fact that Mark Lamont Hill is an ally, you know what I'm saying, to them on the Native podcast, the Native Land podcast. And I feel like because they sit in a certain space, y'all all know them cousins that we got, right? The cousin, and I could be wrong, but I feel like what I got from them and their commentary, we're gonna go through it, is that they looking at it like, is this ghetto shit? You know what I mean? Like they don't have them experiences either. You know what I mean? Like let's keep it 100. I don't care if you went to the most prestigious college, whatever you got going, you got family members. If you black, you got family members from every walk of life. You can have a cousin that's a doctor and a cousin that's the biggest dope boy. And that's the whole factor of all black people are not one type of person. You know what I mean? You got a lot of shades to us, a lot of different skills, a lot of different intellect, a lot of different skills that apply in different spaces. But let's go to the commentary regarding this situation with Mark Lamont Hill and Queens Flip and how they felt about the situation in its totality, because it's not just that they speak about.
And sometimes we can adopt the oppressor's behavior, which brings me to a clip that went viral this week. And that is, of course, of our friend and brother, Mark Lamont Hill. This happened on the Joe Budden broadcast this week. To me, it was clear that his co-host felt small. And, you know, even him saying you use tricky words and Mark responding with, I use words that are tricky to you. And anytime somebody, I think, cannot take to be questioned or responds with a full temper tantrum, it is always about that other person, not about, like, it wasn't Mark. He didn't do anything. And if someone is so small that you can't articulate your point without throwing a temper tantrum or insulting another person, I'm happy that Mark showed both sides, that yes, I'm an intellectual, but don't get up in the studio, you know? And I think it's important for people to see that, yes, you can still be an intellectual and demand your respect. That doesn't make you soft.
Adopting the oppressor's behavior is crazy, for real. Now, I don't think it's so much that, like, they trying to aim it like Queens Flip. Like, listen, they grown-ass men. These is not little boys. These is not little boys. They're not in a conference room. They're on a podcast. Podcasting is a space where people get a chance to be honest about every level. And guess what? They work together a lot. Whenever you got to be in the vicinity, and I'm just speaking as being a man, men, when we got to be in the vicinity of one another for a long time, it don't always go the way that everybody think it's going to go. Shit ain't always cool. People be dealing with a lot of different emotions, a lot of different pressures. And let's keep it 1,000. While Mark did do what he did, I don't think it's so much that he did the right thing. That nigga stooped to Flip level the same way. And I'm not mad at that. I'm going to keep it 1,000. I'm not mad at that at all. Like, I'm not mad at Mark standing up. Yo, what you doing? You called, like, you said, what he said he called him? What did he say he called him, man? He said, oh, sucker shit. He said sucker shit, right? Like, yo, you said sucker shit. Because guess what? It was a trigger. It took him back to being in Philly for him being young and having to hear that. Sucker shit, dickhead. Like, it's so many different words that trigger men. Like, let's just talk about the trauma aspect of it. But that trauma aspect, it wasn't so much that nobody's belittling Mark and he's so smart that he can't do that. The nigga, man, like, let's keep it 1,000. I don't think that conversation goes any different because he did the same thing with Piers Morgan. Now, he might have not said, yo, like, let's go outside and all that on Piers Morgan because he was remote. But he was quick to let them know, don't have somebody up here saying the N-word so that you could trigger me to make me, like, Mark basically said on Piers Morgan, you basically letting them trying to say that to make me look like I'm pussy. He didn't say it in them words, but that's basically what the ladies would say is given, right? Now, Angela Rye, she goes a little bit deeper into what she feels, how Mark is treated on the show. And I ain't gonna front. There's some points that I do agree with her on this, but let's all watch it together as a family, you feel me? And then we gonna come back and talk about it.
I don't think that Mark should be left holding the bag in this exchange. I take great issue with that podcast and its treatment of Mark. And I was wondering when he was gonna snap. You know, there's another clip that I don't know if you all saw where Mark announces very vulnerably that he's lost almost all of his colleagues that were reporting in Gaza. And by lost, I mean they are killed. They died in their reporting and trying to be courageous for their people.
And then around the world, we're seeing violence everywhere, including Gaza, where I work for Al Jazeera. My colleagues, every colleague I have in Gaza has been murdered. Every single colleague I have in Gaza has been murdered. So we got a lot of work to do, a lot of stuff to pay attention to.
That's pretty good.
All right, Young Thug dissed, I get scared every time he do that shit.
He do it so fast, so you gotta hit.
Everybody know in Gaza is like,
oh my colleague.
God damn, he doing it again.
That nigga Mark, boy.
Why you don't never support him when he started talking that shit? You support him very well, Pizza Hut.
He has my full support, but I also know that once he says something like that or we discuss something like that, then we're just like, okay, what's the fucking pivot? What's the pivot after we talk about every journalist on the Gaza Strip being murdered? Like, what's the pivot?
So Young Thug
there we go.
appeared on Little Baby's project.
Quite the project.
And sharing vulnerably, he's lost all his people. And Joe Budden's transition, not this other guy, I don't know everybody's name, but not this other guy. Joe Budden's transition is like, and Young Thug. Like, just no mention of like, are you okay?
Yeah.
How do you feel? Who was lost this week? How did they die? Just like nothing. So 2 tips point around curiosity. If you can't find curiosity, find sympathy. If you can't find sympathy, find empathy. If you can't find empathy, find compassion. Because if you don't, the person who is in a constant state of grief, at some point that grief turns to rage because there's not a safe container for it. So we say on this show, welcome home, and we mean that. Of course, Mark is welcome anytime. I don't know about the rest of them. So I just want Mark to know I'm praying for you, brother. You know that. And I want better for him. I think that he deserves to hold space with people who are at least more compassionate and more eager to learn from his perspective.
Now, I think it's real messed up that, all of Mark's colleagues, because he does this in another space, have lost their lives, you know what I'm saying, due to what's going on overseas. And that's very tough to deal with. I think that the difficult space for the Joe Budden podcast and why Joe, I'm not going to say makes fun of it, but the way he kind of pivots, you know what I'm saying, in a comedic way is because you don't usually hear these types of conversations with that group of people, right? So I think it does make it an awkward space in order for all of them to talk about that. And I don't think that's like shooting Joe Bill or nothing. I just think it's just real shit, right? Like everybody might not be equipped for that level of conversation. Now you would ask, well, if you're not equipped for that level of conversation, why would Mark be on that podcast? I think Mark is on the podcast because of who he is and what he brings to the table. He brings a layer of shit that they don't have. Now, it's to be said, if they could learn how to have them types of conversations, but where the conversation starts to where it goes, I think it makes it a little bit awkward. And with Joe, you do have people up there like a Queen's Flip that might be liable to say some other shit. You know what I'm saying? And you can't afford to have a situation with that level of seriousness be misinterpreted by somebody not understanding and saying the wrong thing, because that could be the end, or that could be a dip in revenue for a minute. That could lose sponsors. It's a lot of shit that's tied to that. Keep in mind, this is Joe's brand. It's not Mark Lamont Hill's show. And I say that with all due respect because of the fact that Mark is speaking real shit. I think that Mark should do more of speaking about these things and being vulnerable in that space on his own time. That would be dope for him, right? But the whole, Mark, you welcome home. You can come up whenever you want, but y'all not welcome up is crazy. Because whoever said that they wanted to be in that space. Now, like I said, much respect. I'm about to start getting more in tune with the Native Land podcast. I personally haven't been in tune with it. I'm about to start watching it more just because I like what they bring to the table as far as conversation. But to say some shit about like, well, yeah, I don't know about the rest of y'all is crazy. And it alienates one another. And this is the space where with all that's going on in the audio or commentary land, where lines get blurred. Because then it's like, why wouldn't they be allowed to come up there? Why wouldn't there be allowed for a teaching moment, even if you feel like that could be that? You know what I'm saying? Plus, we don't know all the behind-the-scenes teaching moments that Joe and Mark may have. But let's go to this clip with Joe. It's a little bit lengthy, though. But let's go to this clip with Joe because he goes off on all of them.
My acceptance of her non-invitation becomes relevant, right? Like Angela, right? I can assure you, I've got over 25 years in this business. I can assure you, if you and I are in the same place, it's a mistake on my part. I'm all for people saying who's invited and uninvited places, so I ain't mad at it. But we would never be in the same space. You, quote unquote, intellectuals seem to be pulling a lot from places that, again, like it said, you admittedly know very little about. It just comes off a way.
Yeah.
It comes off away.
It's like if you put...
especially when you pretending to... especially when you pretending to do all of this super black kumbaya shit. I got a problem with that, too. Mm-hmm. I got a problem with the people that masquerade as kumbaya, super black, all for the people, and I'll be the first one to tell you how we're different. I come on here every week and say we're less different than we are alike. We just got different ideologies. But I'm not going to keep listening to people who, in 25 years, I've never said the name Angela Rye. I don't give a fuck about nothing y'all talking about over there. I'm saying that respectfully. I don't come on here and say a word about any of that shit. I expect reciprocity. You could have titled that clip totally different.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Don't claim to be super pro-black and then take the #1 black urban podcast and put that type of stink on it because you think you got a friend over here. That don't give you a license.
I don't think it's that. I don't think if Mark was here or not. I think
if Mark was here, they would never have those conversations.
No,
they having those conversations because their friend is up here.
No, they having those conversations because Mark is deemed an academic and an intellectual, which you
well,
are.
He is, not
which,
deemed,
no,
he
no,
is.
No, I said what you are. So now it's, why is he even there? Mm-hmm. Like Angela Yee said, Mark, just come home.
Angela Rye.
Pardon me, Angela Rye said, Mark, just come home.
That's the other beef.
But then you go on to say how diverse Mark is. So I think that that's an insult because you don't put Mark in a box. Mark is home. Mark is a black man sitting in a room with black men that grew up in similar circumstances, albeit we wasn't all in the cold. You can't say he's not home. We all had
our own walks of life.
Yeah, dog. Like I just disagree with that shit.
And thank God there was a black-owned, independent media company there to pick up our good brother when he was misunderstood by other outlets.
Talk about it.
Why is that part not being said by pro-black native land people? I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
Mark was a free agent. Y'all had a chance to bring him home.
And didn't.
You didn't.
That's a good point.
So don't sit up on your platforms all pretentious as one of the Charlemites. That's how I know you. I know you as one of the Charlemites and get to saying what Mark should and shouldn't be doing. Please. If you didn't discuss this podcast before, if by your own admittance you know very little about it, the woman Tiffany said at least 5 times that she don't give a fuck about these other opinions. All I'm asking is that you act like it.
And the title of that podcast that they're talking about is Joe Budden's podcast, The Dumbing Down of America. That's what I'm saying. You can't go as far to say something like that. Let's just call it for what it is. The fact of the matter is you got 2 people with all the accomplishments of Mark Lamont Hill in respect to him and all the accomplishments of Queens Flip in respect to him. Queens Flip was from Queens. Mark Lamont Hill is from Philly. Very aggressive places, extremely aggressive places. With that being said, that doesn't mean that these 2 men can't have some sort of solace because they had confrontation. You feel me? But to say the dumbing down of America is insane because from an intellectual level, right? From an intellectual level, we get it. We respect it. Y'all did what y'all did, whether that's school, whether it's, the platforms that y'all are on, y'all talk about certain topics, that's great. But on the other side, for what Joe has done and built up, over the years, and then, he threw Charlemagne the shot with the Charlemites and all of that because they are friends. Well, Angela Rye is, I've seen her on the Breakfast Club many times, and she's a friend of Charlemagne. You know what I'm saying? For them to say the dumbing down, it reminds me of school days. You know what I mean? When you look up in the air, you see Jigaboo. Remember how it was like that clash of light skin, the light skin fraternity versus the dark skin fraternity, the gammas. You know what I mean? Like that's what it shows. And I just think, again, and I said this numerous times, that the more and more we do this type of shit, it just causes a divide. Because guess what the white man do? Get paid off for all of that. This is I do it myself. For the ones that rock with me, you know how we doing. For the ones that don't, eventually will. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.